The story begins with a storm that does not simply arrive, it claims the land. Across the desert, the sky churns with a ferocity that commands attention. Black clouds twist into shapes that look like ancient spirits, traveling across the ridges and mesas as if awakened from a century of slumber. Lightning rips through the horizon with violent beauty, and each thunderclap feels like the desert is speaking in a voice older than memory. Ilara Hart, the protagonist, is riding in a wagon convoy heading west toward a remote settlement. She is not a seasoned traveler. She comes from a quiet town where life was predictable, where women married young or taught in the schoolhouse. But after her mother died, and with no family willing to house an unmarried daughter, Ilara had to create her own destiny. She accepted a position as a teacher in an isolated settlement, believing it would be temporary, just long enough to gain independence. She could not know her journey would change far more than her future job. As the storm worsens, the convoy halts to debate the safest path. But the wagon driver responsible for Ilara grows impatient. He thinks he can outrun the storm by taking a shortcut through Crow Canyon, a narrow, twisting pass that even experienced scouts avoid during heavy rains. Ilara senses the man's recklessness, but lacks the authority to challenge him. Instead, she clings to the wooden seat as the wagon lurches forward. Within minutes, rain turns the canyon into a trap. Water rushes down from the cliffs in thin, deadly streams. The horses panic, eyes rolling, hooves slipping in the mud. When a bolt of lightning strikes close enough to illuminate every jagged edge of the canyon, the team rears violently. The wagon tips, groaning under the weight, and the driver shouts for Ilara to jump. She leaps. The wagon crashes behind her, wheels snapping like brittle bones. The driver's shouts echo away as he is carried farther down by the rushing water and trapped wagon. Ilara stands alone in the storm, drenched, shaking, and surrounded by the dark, echoing throat of the canyon. She tries to climb the slick rocks, slipping, tearing her palms, but determination fuels her. She must find shelter, or she will not survive the night. Her lantern sputters, flickers, and dies, swallowed by the rain. She wraps her shawl around her. Though it is soaked and useless, lightning becomes her only guide. Minutes, maybe hours, pass before she sees it. A single glow, orange and steady, shining through the sheets of rain. A fire, a sign of life, warmth, hope. She climbs toward it, scrambling over rocks that scrape her knees. Her breath fogs in the cold desert air. Her heartbeat grows loud in her ears, a frantic drum. When she reaches the opening of the cave, she hesitates. And then she sees him. A man stands in the glow of the fire, Chief Atsa, a leader of his Apache band. He is tall, carved from grit and discipline, with long black hair braided in traditional style, and sharp eyes that catch every detail. He does not startle. He does not reach for a weapon. He simply watches her, with the quiet intensity of someone who sees not just the present moment, but the long path behind it. The storm roars behind her, but inside the cave the air feels unnervingly still. She whispers an apology for intruding, her voice trembling from fear and cold. Atsa studies her for a moment more, before gesturing toward the fire. The gesture is not warm, but it is deliberate, controlled, confident, a leader's gesture. She steps in. The heat from the fire wraps around her like a second skin. Ilara shivers violently as her body adjusts. Atsa comes forward, silently draping a thick wool blanket around her shoulders. She is surprised by the gentleness in his movement. She has heard stories the settlers tell about Apache warriors, but none of them match the calm, quiet strength standing before her. He offers her a bowl of steaming herbal tea, prepared with juniper and sage. The scent is earthy, soothing, and unfamiliar. She hesitates, unsure whether to trust him. Atsa senses her doubt and sits a short distance away, deliberately turning his attention to the fire. The non-threatening posture is intentional. It allows her to decide freely. Ilara finally sips the tea, and warmth spreads through her chest, loosening the tight knot of fear. For a long while, they sit together in silence, the fire crackling between them. Rain beats against the rocks in a slow, heavy rhythm. Ilara studies him discreetly. His features are striking: broad shoulders, strong jaw, high cheekbones, and eyes that seem to reflect the firelight. He wears a necklace of turquoise and shell beads, each piece likely symbolic. She notices a scar along his forearm, old and pale. She wonders what battles gave it to him. Atsa eventually speaks. "You should not be in this canyon during a storm." His voice is low, deep, with a cadence that suggests English is not his first language. She explains what happened: the shortcut, the panic, the overturned wagon. He nods once, as though he had already deduced most of it. Then he says something that sends a chill down her back, though not from cold. "I saw the wagon. I saw the horses run. I knew someone must have been left behind." She realizes then that he saved her life before she even knew she needed saving. Atsa tends the fire with slow, experienced movements. He speaks little, but his silence is not unfriendly. It is deliberate, thoughtful. Ilara begins asking questions, small, cautious questions, about the storm, about whether he is alone, about how far his camp is. He answers selectively, giving her enough to ease fear, but not enough to reveal anything sacred or strategic. He mentions he is alone tonight because he needed space to prepare for a night of visions. The phrase catches her attention. She asks what that means. He does not answer. The fire crackles. She senses that he carries a weight, something spiritual, something personal. She wonders what kind of visions require solitude in such a dangerous storm. As the night deepens, the storm finally begins to wane. The thunder moves farther away. The wind shifts from violent to weary. But inside the cave, something else grows. A tension, a thickening of the air that neither of them acknowledges aloud. Ilara tries to stand to adjust the blanket, but she sways from exhaustion. Atsa moves quickly, catching her wrist to steady her. His grip is firm, but careful, the grip of someone accustomed to using strength responsibly. Their eyes lock. It is then, only then, that he speaks the line that becomes the heart of the entire story. She feels the words settle over her like a prophecy, a summons she does not understand. Is his power spiritual, a ritual, a leadership rite, a gift, but danger? She does not know, but her breath hitches, and the night seems to shift around them. Less storm, more destiny. The outline closes, with dawn beginning to creep across the desert, painting soft red light across the cave entrance. Ilara realizes her life has just taken a turn she cannot undo. The storm may have brought Ilara to Atsa's cave, but the second outline reveals something deeper. Her arrival was not a coincidence. It was the fulfillment of a vision the Apache chief had been carrying for months, a vision he had not dared to share with anyone in his band. As dawn filters softly into the cave, Brushing the stone walls with warm amber light, Ilara wakes to find Atsa standing at the entrance. His silhouette outlined against the vast horizon, he stands perfectly still, like a statue carved by the desert winds. There is something solemn in his posture, something weighted with purpose. She sits up slowly, the blanket still wrapped around her shoulders. Her body aches from the previous night, but she feels a strange sense of calm, an unshaken certainty that she is exactly where she is meant to be, even if she doesn't understand how or why. Atsa turns when he hears her shift. His gaze sweeps over her, not with ownership, but with quiet assessment, as if he is measuring her strength, her fear, her determination. He does not smile, but his eyes soften. It is not warmth, it is recognition. "Did you sleep?" he asks in a low voice. "Yes," she replies, though she barely slept at all. She had been too aware of him, of the fire, of the way the night seemed to bend around his presence. Atsa nods. He steps farther into the cave, not sitting, but remaining in a stance of leadership. He is a man who does not relax easily, a man who thinks more than he speaks. Ilara senses that something important is about to unfold, and she holds her breath without realizing it. He begins without ceremony. "Last winter," he says, "our medicine man had a vision. A storm would come, a stranger would arrive, and she would carry two paths in her hands, one of creation, one of destruction." Ilara's heartbeat quickens. She pulls the blanket tighter around her body, suddenly aware that she is no longer merely a lost traveler. She is a piece of a story she never agreed to enter. Atsa continues. "He said I must go alone to greet the storm on the night the desert called for it. That I must open my eyes to what the spirits would show me. I did not understand then." He pauses. The silence stretches, thickening with meaning. "But last night, I understood." Ilara swallows hard. "You think I'm that stranger? That woman from the vision?" He meets her gaze, unwavering. "I do not think, I know." His certainty sends a shiver down her spine. Not fear, something else. Something electric, ancient, inexplicably intimate. She wants to dismiss the idea. She wants to say she's just a stranded teacher from a distant town, nothing more. But the truth is unavoidable. Something about last night felt predestined, guided by a force she cannot name. Atsa does not move closer, but his presence feels larger. The medicine man said that the stranger would arrive with a heart open enough to hear the truth, and strong enough to face the consequences of it. "Consequences?" Ilara repeats softly. "What consequences?" Atsa looks toward the desert, where the storm clouds are thinning, and sunlight spills across the sands in golden rivers. "There is tension between my band and the soldiers at Fort Arrow Ridge," he explains. "They seek to push us from the land our ancestors are buried in. They have offered treaties made of smoke, lies made of paper." Ilara listens, her breathing slow, steady. She has heard rumors of these conflicts, but never from someone who lived them. The vision said the stranger would bring change, not by intention, but by existence. Her presence alone would force both sides to reveal their truths. Ilara feels her stomach tighten. The weight of such a role is unimaginable. She tries to steady her voice. "But why me?" Atsa steps closer. Not too close, but enough that she feels the shift in the air. "I do not know yet," he admits. "But when you entered this cave, soaked from the storm, trembling but unbroken, it was like watching the vision become flesh." She flinches slightly at the depth of his words. Atsa does not notice the heat rising in her cheeks. Or perhaps he does, but does not show it. "You came on the night the desert chose," he says quietly. "A night of visions, a night of power." There is something about the way he says power that unsettles her. Not a threat, not dominance. Something spiritual, something internal. Something he has been preparing for. Ilara asks, almost reluctantly, "What kind of power will I witness?" Atsa's expression becomes unreadable, a blend of gravity and something unspoken. "You will see tonight," he says. The promise or warning hangs in the air like lightning waiting to strike. As the morning progresses, Atsa decides they must travel to his camp. The storm washed out the canyon paths, making it impossible for Ilara to return to the settlement alone. Besides, he insists, his people must know who she is. The vision requires it. She hesitates. What if they see her as a threat? What if they reject her? But Atsa assures her softly, "You come under my protection." Those words should frighten her. Instead, they anchor her. The idea of being under his protection feels strangely right, like the desert has wrapped its own shield around her. The journey to his camp is long, but Atsa moves with an ease that astounds her. He reads the land like a map. The rocks, the animal tracks, the wind direction, they all speak to him. Ilara follows close behind, sometimes stumbling, always catching herself before he can reach to steady her. She does not want to seem weak in the eyes of a man whose world operates on strength, resilience, and honor. As they walk, Atsa tells her more about the vision. There were two paths, he says, one lit by fire, one by water. What do they mean? She asks. Fire brings rebirth, he explains, but it also burns. Water nourishes, but it also drowns. A shiver runs through her, though the sun is warm on her skin. And I choose which path? She asks. He shakes his head. No, you carry both, but the choice is mine. His words are deeply intimate, almost too intimate. She feels exposed, vulnerable, but also strangely important, as if her existence finally matters to something grander than herself. They walk in silence for a while, until Atsa adds quietly, "The medicine man said the stranger's arrival would test my spirit." Ilara looks at him, truly looks. How? Atsa finally glances her way, his eyes reflecting sunlight and something deeper. He said my heart would be revealed, either my true strength or my true weakness. Ilara's breath catches. And which do you think I will show you? She asks before she can stop herself. Atsa stops walking, turns, faces her fully. His voice is low, steady, breathtakingly honest. That, he whispers, is what I fear most, and what I desire most. Her pulse pounds in her ears. The desert around them seems to exhale, as if the land itself recognizes the shift between them. When they reach the outskirts of his camp, Atsa warns her, "My people are cautious. They will question why you are here, but they trust my judgment." Ilara nods, bracing herself. As they enter the encampment, dozens of eyes turn toward them, sharp, assessing, curious. Women pause in their tasks. Warriors straighten, alert. Children whisper among themselves. Atsa walks with authority, and the people part for him. But their gazes fall on Ilara, with a mixture of suspicion and intrigue. She feels as though she is standing in the center of a whirlwind she did not choose. And then the medicine man emerges. An elderly figure, with eyes clouded by age, yet bright with knowing. He studies Ilara for a long moment, then nods slowly, as if he sees something no one else does. He turns to Atsa and speaks in Apache. Ilara cannot understand the words, but Atsa's reaction, the tightening of his jaw, the deep inhale, tells her everything. The medicine man has confirmed it. She is the woman from the vision, the stranger with the two paths. Atsa bows his head slightly. When he looks at her again, there is no doubt. No reluctance, only certainty. Tonight, he says softly, you will witness the power the spirits have chosen for me, and I will witness the truth they have chosen in you. Her breath hitches. The night is waiting, and destiny is already unfolding. The day passes slowly in the Apache camp. Every pair of eyes follows Ilara as she walks beside Atsa. Some are wary, some curious, a few openly questioning. The children whisper behind her, pointing at her clothing, her hair, her pale skin. Women who grind corn pause to study her with careful judgment. Warriors tilt their heads slightly, as if assessing whether she is a threat or an omen. To them, she is not simply an outsider. She is the stranger from a prophecy. Atsa leads her to a small area near his own dwelling, giving her water and food, a clean blanket to rest on, and time to recover from the storm. But rest is nearly impossible. Her mind races with everything she has seen and heard. She watches Atsa from a distance as he speaks with his council, his warriors, his medicine man. He stands tall, composed, unmistakably a leader. Yet several times she catches his eyes drifting toward her, as if checking that she is still there, still safe, still real. Later, when the sun begins to sink behind the mountains and the desert wind grows cooler, Atsa approaches her. "It is time," he says. "For what?" she whispers. "To witness the power the spirits demand," he replies. Her heart skips. She stands, following him through the camp. People step aside, whispering prayers under their breath. A large circle has been drawn in the sand, marked by stones, sage branches, and symbols drawn in white pigment. A central fire burns brightly in the middle, its flame tall and strangely steady, as though wind refuses to touch it. The medicine man stands on the opposite side, draped in ceremonial garments. His eyes glint with the kind of wisdom that is not learned, but inherited. Atsa motions for Ilara to stand beside him at the edge of the circle. She obeys, though her pulse pounds so strongly she fears others can hear it. "This is a ritual of truth," the medicine man explains in heavily accented English for her sake. "A chief must face the spirits with an unguarded heart. Not a warrior's mask, not a leader's pride. Only his truest self." Ilara glances at Atsa, surprised. She had never imagined him vulnerable, never imagined he would willingly reveal anything of himself. The medicine man continues. "The stranger watches. The spirits judge. And what he reveals tonight ties your path to his." She shivers, not from fear, from the sheer gravity of what is unfolding. Atsa steps into the circle first. His movement is deliberate, purposeful, and grounded. He removes his weapons, a knife, a bow, even a small bone charm, symbolizing a warrior's protection. Each item laid at the edge of the circle is a piece of himself set aside. "He enters without power," the medicine man murmurs, "so the spirits may show him his true power." Ilara's breath tightens. Atsa meets her gaze for a lingering moment, something unspoken passing between them, then turns toward the fire. The ceremony begins. The medicine man chants in Apache, his voice deep and rhythmic. The sound seems to vibrate through the air itself, echoing off the desert floor and rising into the darkening sky. Atsa kneels before the fire, closing his eyes. Ilara watches, mesmerized. The flames seem to respond to him, leaning toward him, brightening, bending as if drawn to his presence. The medicine man throws herbs into the flames. White sage, sweetgrass, juniper. Fragrant smoke coils upward, swirling around Atsa in spirals. Ilara has the sudden, startling realization that she is witnessing something sacred, something few outsiders have ever seen. Atsa's breathing deepens. His posture straightens. His hands tremble subtly, not with fear, but with intensity. And then the visions begin. Not for her eyes, but she can sense them. He can see something she cannot. The medicine man explains quietly. He must show the spirits the truth of his heart. He must face the shadow he fears, and the light he desires. As Atsa's breathing accelerates, Ilara sees the tension in his jaw, the furrowing of his brow. Sweat beads across his forehead. His hands clench into fists. He is wrestling with something unseen. She steps forward instinctively, but the medicine man places a hand on her arm. "You cannot enter," he warns. "If you interrupt, the spirits may abandon him." She freezes, torn between obedience and the desperate urge to comfort him. Atsa makes a soft, strangled sound, a sound of pain. Ilara's chest tightens. "What is he seeing?" she whispers. The medicine man replies softly. "Truth. What he wants most, and what he fears most." The fire suddenly flares, gaining height, twice its size. Its color deepens to a reddish gold. Spikes rise into the sky like stars breaking free from gravity. Atsa gasps, his eyes snapping open, and then, unexpectedly, his gaze goes straight to Ilara, not by accident, not in confusion, but with sharp recognition. He is seeing her, not as a stranger, not as a burden of prophecy, but as the revelation the spirits promised. He rises slowly, firelight painting his features in striking contrasts, his strength, his scars, his vulnerability. He steps toward her, not crossing the boundary of the circle, but coming as close as the ritual allows. "Ilara," he breathes, voice raw, trembling with emotions he had never shown before. "You are the path." She feels those words like a physical touch. The medicine man speaks again, his tone shifting. "The spirits have shown him truth without shields. Now the trial is yours." "Mine," she whispers. "You must step to the edge," he says, "and meet his truth with your own." Her legs feel weak, but she moves forward, one careful step at a time, until she is face to face with Atsa, separated only by a thin line of sand marking the circle's boundary. Atsa's eyes lock onto hers, burning with intensity, vulnerability, and something dangerously close to longing. "Ilara," he murmurs, voice shaking, "I have seen the future they showed me, and you are woven into it." Her breath falters. He continues, "You carry two paths. One brings peace to my people. One brings destruction to everything I must protect. But whichever becomes true depends on me." She whispers, "What does that mean?" Atsa answers in the quietest, most powerful voice she has heard from him. "It means that to choose you is to choose my destiny. Ilara's heart stutters. He extends his hand, not crossing the line, but offering it forward. This night, he says, my spirit opened. My heart revealed its truth. I saw fear. I saw strength. But I also saw you. Her eyes sting. And what did you see of me? She asks, barely audible. Atsa's answer is both a confession and a vow. Everything I could gain, and everything I could lose. The fire dims, settling into a steady glow. The wind falls silent. Even the watching villagers seem to hold their breath. This moment, this shared confession across the boundary, is the true heart of the ritual. Not magic, not prophecy, but two souls choosing whether to trust what they see in each other. Ilara lifts her hand. Her fingers tremble. She places her palm against his. The circle's boundary does not break, but something else does. The wall between them. Atsa exhales shakily, as if her touch is both a relief and a revelation. The medicine man declares, the spirits accept the truth revealed tonight. The fire suddenly extinguishes, plunging the circle into darkness. Gasps ripple through the watching crowd. Then the stars above ignite, bright, sharp, thousands of them, as though the sky itself approves. Ilara stands before Atsa, her palm still against his, breath unsteady, heart wide open. And in the quiet that follows, she feels it. The night has changed them both. Forever. Night settled slowly over the Apache land, the sky turning cobalt blue as the sun slipped behind the red stone cliffs. A hush fell over the camp, not the silence of fear, but the silence of reverence. Torches flickered outside the council lodge, and shadows danced across the earth, like spirits gathering to listen. It was on this night, the one the chief had foretold, that he led her toward the sacred circle where his people once communed with their ancestors, and where only leaders were allowed to step. She felt nervous, not because she feared him, but because she sensed something immense was about to unfold. Every footstep he took was steady. Every breath she drew felt tight with anticipation. He hadn't spoken since they left his dwelling. There was no need. His silence held meaning she could feel in her bones. When they reached the circle, he lifted his hand. "Stop," he murmured. His voice was a gravel-low whisper, yet it carried the gravity of thunder. She obeyed. He stood facing the sky, shoulders squared, eyes closed. The firelight painted gold along the angles of his face, and for the first time, she noticed the exhaustion beneath his strength. The kind that came not from labor, but from carrying an entire people on his back. His braids, usually tight and orderly, had loosened with the wind. His ceremonial paint from earlier ceremonies had smudged, but remained visible enough to resemble battle markings. "Tonight," he said, "you will understand what it means when I say you will witness my true power." Her breath caught, not from fear, but from the weight of the moment. He gestured for her to step closer. When she crossed the boundary of the circle, she felt a shiver ripple through her, as though the ground itself recognized a newcomer entering sacred space. The chief knelt beside the central fire pit, pulled a handful of dried herbs from a woven pouch, and dropped them into the flames. The smoke rose in twisting white spirals, fragrant and calming, filling the air with sage and cedar. Then he spoke in Apache, his voice rhythmic, reverent, almost like chanting. The language rolled off his tongue with a rich cadence. each word carrying centuries of lineage. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the emotion. He was calling to something, to someone. When he turned toward her, his eyes looked different, softer, older. "Sit," he said gently. She knelt on the earth across from him, the flames between them. "You see strength on the outside, little one," he murmured, "but you do not know yet the balance a leader must keep. You know nothing of the wounds no warrior lets the world witness." The fire crackled between them, sparks popping into the dark like tiny stars. He placed his hand against his chest. "My true power," he said, "is not what my warriors see. It is not my bow, nor my command, nor the fear I can summon. It is what I hide." His jaw tightened. "And tonight, I choose not to hide from you." Slowly, deliberately, he removed the carved wooden pendant from around his neck. She had seen him wear it every day, had noticed how no one else touched it, how every warrior bowed slightly when their eyes landed upon it. It wasn't an ornament. It was a symbol, a burden, a promise. "My father wore this," he said, "and his father before him." She leaned forward, captivated. "Then why give it to me?" she whispered. His eyes softened. "Because you need to understand the man you are bound to, and because no one understands a leader unless they understand what he protects." He placed the pendant in her palms. It was heavier than it looked, not physically, but in meaning. She felt a pulse of energy, a warmth that seemed to radiate from the wood itself. The chief inhaled deeply, as though steadying himself. "When I became leader, I promised my people I would never show weakness," he said. "But strength, true strength, is not the absence of weakness. It is the willingness to bear it without breaking." He leaned closer, the firelight catching in his eyes. "Tonight, you will see my scars." Her heart thudded. She expected physical scars, wounds from battles, injuries earned in war. But when he began speaking again, she understood. He meant something far deeper. He told her of the drought that nearly destroyed his tribe when he was a child, how he watched his mother ration water and still perish because she gave more to the children than to herself. He spoke of his father, the previous chief, who died in a border raid trying to negotiate peace. He revealed how at only 16, he had to bury a man twice his size and take on a responsibility 10 times his age. He described the visions he'd been given, the ones only leaders received, and the spiritual trials he had endured to prove himself worthy. He recounted the night he stood alone in the desert, fasting, waiting for the spirits to judge him. He told her how he had cried out, not from fear, but from the knowledge that every future mistake he made would cost his people dearly. She sat utterly still, breath trembling. "I carry every death," he whispered, "every hunger, every cry. They live here." He pressed a hand to his chest. "And every day I must appear unshakable, even when I am breaking." One tear slipped from the corner of his eye. Not the tear of a weak man, but the tear of a man too strong for too long. She couldn't breathe. Slowly, instinctively, she reached out and placed her hand over his, not claiming him, not comforting him out of pity, but acknowledging the depth of who he truly was. He didn't pull away. "When I declared that tonight you would witness my true power," he said softly, "I meant this, the power to show you the man beneath the title. The power to trust you with my soul." The wind shifted, carrying sparks into the dark. She whispered, Why me? He caught her gaze, unblinking, unwavering. Because the spirits told me that the one who would walk beside me would be strong enough to carry half my burdens, and gentle enough to heal wounds no medicine man can touch. Their hands remained joined across the fire. Not as captive and chief, not as outsiders from different worlds, but as two souls meeting in the middle of their truths. This was the night she understood him, not as the powerful warrior who commanded armies, not as the intimidating figure who had captured her, not as the legend whispered about around campfires, but as a man who had spent his entire life protecting everyone but himself, and allowing her into that sacred place. That was the greatest power he possessed. The fire had died down to glowing embers, spreading a soft orange light across the sacred circle. She could still feel the warmth of the chief's hand lingering over hers, not physically, but deeply, like an imprint on her spirit. It was the first time he had ever let someone see him stripped of every title, every mask. And as the smoke thinned into the night air, she understood something that made her chest tighten. Power was not what she had feared. Power was what he had given her. He stood slowly, offering his hand to help her rise. The world around them felt different now, quieter, more intimate, woven not with tension, but with connection. When she placed her hand in his, he didn't grip it like a leader demanding loyalty. He lifted it gently, guiding her to her feet like someone welcoming an equal. "Come," he murmured, his voice low from emotion rather than authority. They walked toward the edges of the camp, where the breeze carried the scent of pine and cool desert night. The moon hung full overhead, silvering the tops of the trees, casting shadows that danced around their feet. She followed him willingly, not because she had no choice, but because now she understood that he wanted her to walk beside him, not behind him. When they reached the crest of a low cliff that overlooked the sleeping valley, he stopped. The world below looked like a living painting. The quiet glow of distant fires, the silhouettes of huts, the slow breathing of a people at rest. He folded his hands behind his back, his posture that of a leader again, but softer now, as though his strength had harmonized with the truth he had shared. "This land," he said quietly, "belongs to my people. But its future, it depends on more than me. It depends on those who stand with me." He turned to her, his face illuminated by moonlight. "You saw the weight I carry, but you must also see this." He placed his palm against the small space between her collarbone and heart. "Tonight, I saw your strength too." Her breath caught. "No," she whispered, "I didn't do anything." "You listened," he interrupted firmly. "You stood, unafraid, in a place where even warriors tremble. You held the truth of my spirit without turning away." He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the smoke still clinging to his skin. "That is power." For a moment, she couldn't speak. She had spent weeks believing she was powerless, a girl caught in the tides of another people's traditions. But standing here, with the chief's eyes fixed on hers, she realized something she'd never let herself consider. He didn't want a follower. He wanted a partner. Before she could respond, he reached into the folds of his belt and pulled out a strip of soft deerskin, wrapped tightly around something small. He placed it in her hands, his fingers brushing hers with intention. "Open it." Her heart thudded as she unraveled the fabric. Inside was a beautifully crafted bracelet, woven from braided horsehair and adorned with a small turquoise stone. The colors were earthy, warm, alive, like the land itself. But it was not the beauty of the bracelet that stunned her. It was the meaning. She stammered, "Is this an honor?" he finished quietly. "One only the chief's chosen is allowed to wear." Her hands trembled. "Chosen?" He nodded, his expression steady, but his voice raw. "You think I took you without reason? You think fate placed you here by accident. But the Spirit showed me long ago that the woman who would stand by my side would not be one born among us." He lifted the turquoise stone with his thumb. "She would be the one who saw me not as a chief, but as a man." She felt her throat tighten. "And tonight, you showed me that woman was you." He took the bracelet from her hands and slowly tied it around her wrist. His fingers brushed over her pulse, a touch as gentle as a promise. She felt warmth spread through her chest, spreading down to her fingertips, settling like a quiet fire in her heart. When he finished tying it, he didn't pull his hand away. "In my people's law," he said, "this marks you as the woman I trust with my life, with my decisions, with my legacy." Her breath trembled. "This gives you a place among us that is second only to mine. And if you choose to stay—" He paused. The pause was not a hesitation. It was the space needed to reveal something sacred. "If you stay, then your voice becomes one our council must hear. Your instincts become part of our future. Your courage becomes part of our strength." She blinked, stunned. "You're giving me authority?" "No," he said softly, brushing a loose strand of hair from her cheek. "I am recognizing the authority you already carry." For the first time since she had arrived in the tribe, she felt taller. Not in height, in presence, in worth, in power. She felt something unfamiliar rise inside her. Confidence, purpose, belonging. The chief lifted her chin gently with his hand. "But you must understand," he whispered, "this cannot be forced. Just as I revealed my true power to you tonight, I will not take your loyalty by force." He stepped back, giving her space, a gesture unheard of for a man of his status. "You have a choice," he said. "Stay beside me or walk away. The bracelet binds you only if you want it to." The idea of leaving startled her, not because she feared being alone, but because she realized she no longer wanted a life without this connection, without the truth of him, without the destiny forming between them like threads being woven by the night itself. She looked down at the bracelet on her wrist, at the turquoise stone glowing faintly in the moonlight, a symbol of trust, of partnership, of becoming something greater than either of them alone. She stepped toward him. "I choose to stay." His eyes closed briefly, as though releasing a breath he had been holding for weeks. When he opened them again, warmth poured from them like sunlight breaking over dawn. He lowered his forehead to hers. Not a kiss, but a sacred gesture, a vow. "Then hear my promise," he whispered. His breath brushed her lips, sending a shiver through her. "In this life and the next, I will walk with you. You will never bear a burden alone. When you speak, I will listen. When you fall, I will carry you. And when I will lead with your strength at my side." She felt tears gathering in her eyes, not from fear, not from uncertainty, from knowing she was no longer powerless, no longer voiceless, no longer alone. Her own forehead pressed against his as she whispered back, "Then I vow to walk beside you, not behind you." A faint smile touched his lips. "Good," he murmured. Because a chief cannot lead if his heart is left behind. The moon shone brighter. The valley below breathed softly, and together, standing on the cliff beneath the silver sky, they sealed a bond made not of obligation, but of choice, trust, and destiny. The night he revealed his true power became the night she discovered her own.